Yes, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to Veterans Minimum. I'm your host, Nick Deus, at Nick Deus10 as you can find me, veteransminimum.com as you can find all things VM. Before we get to one of my favorite guests of all time, let's run through the Patreon roll call. We got Daniel Gibson, Nick Chavez, Abel, Ben, Christopher, Derek, Devin, Jordan Riley, Nick Crummage, and Thomas Robinson. And special thanks to David Martinez pledging to the Patreon for an entire year, 1 year. Thank you very much. Going to get some merch out to you in the coming weeks. And I sent out merch to everyone last week. And enough about the Patreon. I got to bring my guy in. One of my favorite people. I say this every time I talk to you, dude, on a public forum like this. Jarrell Harris, editor, sneaker addict, and the leading scorer at Wash Club NY. My guy, Jarrell. What's good, bro?
What's good, brother? Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate you.
How are you feeling, man? I know.
Man,
Talk
yeah,
about being
tough.
washed, right?
Talk about being washed. Last Sunday, man, I was hooping. Final game of the day, and I was like, I'm not playing. I'm done. We won already like 5 games. Hop back in because they needed one more. I'm dribbling the ball up, and then I thought someone kicked me so hard. I looked back, and it was a ghost. No one was there. So I kind of knew what happened, and doctors diagnosed me torn Achilles. So long recovery ahead.
Damn, bro. Oh, devastating, dude. I don't know if I've ever told you. I blew out my knee playing football too one time, my ACL. And it happened running out of bounds. And talk about being washed. I run out of bounds, my knee just buckles, and I collapse, and I immediately start crying, not from the pain, because I just
Mhm.
knew that my shit was gonna be a long, long
Yeah.
recovery ahead.
Yeah, like my Achilles, it didn't really hurt that much. It was like extremely stiff, but I was just on the floor like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to do like 9 months, like a whole year without like playing ball. Like if I need surgery or not, I don't know. That's what like crept in my mind. So here we are now.
Hey, man, if there's one bit of advice I could give you and to anyone watching or listening to this that suffers a significant injury, it's gonna sound very cliche, but I'm gonna tell you the truth because you're my guy, and I don't lie to my people, Jarrell. It's gonna be trash, the rehab.
Yeah.
However, you gotta take it seriously, dude. Because my biggest thing was I'm coming up on a decade now that I had my surgery. December will be 10 years when I had my surgery. And dude, the only time I feel it in my knee is when I have conversations like this. And that was my
Yep.
main goal, dude. Because I'm 32 now. I got hurt when I was 22, and the thing I didn't want was to me being 35, 40, and saying, "Oh, I remember when I blew out my knee." And it's because I took the rehab really, really serious, man. I was going
Mhm.
3, 4 times a week. I was even doing things. Ask your PT to give you like workouts to do at home. It's gonna be terrible. But I'm telling you, man, especially someone like you who likes to hoop, and I'm sure that's going to be the rest of your life. You don't want to be in your 40s and be like, "Oh, I remember when this happened," right? And it'll be the best thing ever, man. So I'm rooting
Yeah.
for you as always, and you'll be fine, man. You'll just add to the list of all the legends that tore their Achilles and came back.
I know, you got the long list. Kobe, KD, and then you got Rel. Come on, man. So good list.
Hey, man, I want to open up with some hoops for you as always. Love talking hoops with you. I want to start with the what we saw yesterday in game 7 with Curry. Dude, when he goes crazy, there is not a better moment on social media than that. He is my
Mhm.
favorite person to go ballistic when Twitter starts saying, yo, he got 20 in a quarter, or he got 30 at half. And yesterday, most points ever in a game 7. Jarrell, when Curry goes nuts, where would you rank that on things you like to consume?
It's number one for me, man. I really enjoy it, and I think that's what makes him different from all players. Is like when Steph is on, it's appointment television. Like you want to see what he's doing exactly. It's like you want to watch Ken Griffey like swing. Trying to think of others like someone like Patrick Mahomes playing football, and I got that with Steph. It's like you want to see him play. It's like I don't get that excitement from like just anyone. Someone just casually like pulling up from like near the logo and like just splashing it. And I think what makes it interesting is he looks like the average guy. He's like not LeBron, he's not KD, he's 6'2", and he looks average, but he's like physically strong, but you don't see that on like television. But the way he like carved up the Kings yesterday, that was ridiculous. That was a masterclass from Steph. So arguably probably his best performance, I think.
Yeah, I would say that one, and then was it game 4 or 5 of the finals
Game
last year?
4 with the Celtics. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was.
it's
I mean
those
that
2.
that's up there because it's the finals. So you definitely have to put that up there. And like they needed that win. So I get that, and then of course it's the Thunder game when he like basically shot it like past half court and it went in.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that was a regular season game. I remember being
Yeah,
out for that one. But that's when they were going on that crazy tear in the regular season. But dude,
yep.
you said it was the finals. That was basically a finals game yesterday, right? It was win or go home in game 7. And to do it in a hostile territory like the Kings were all year, a really dominant team at home. And then on the flip side, Golden State was pretty whack on the road. I think they were like 8 and 39, 8 and
Mhm.
like 32 on the road or something ridiculous like that. It made no sense. But there's something dope about Steph also, and I agree with everything that you're saying. But the coolest thing about Steph is he's super petty too. When he
Oh
was
yeah,
saying, when he was saying like
because
the best was when he was like, "Yeah, I'm not ready for this shit." And it was
yeah,
like, "Oh my god."
I know. I mean, and he's right. It's like the experience is what like put them over. It's like the Kings were not ready for it. Like the Aaron Fox is really really good, but they don't have that playoff experience.
There's
Like in a game 7 on the road, come on.
there's levels, bro. Like we say that all the time. And for that young team and the Kings who overachieved this year, they surpassed their win total by like 18 games according to the sports books. They won their division, which they were like 250 to 1, which is crazy, Jarrell, because you very rarely see those kind of odds for divisions, right? Like people usually bet the conference and the finals, not so much divisions. But man, I was tweeting out yesterday, dude, when Curry was saying y'all not ready for this shit, and then to have the soul of a fan base just be taken from them because you saw the fans, you saw the players too, bro.
My
Like,
favorite thing
oh,
was the commercial cut about when he like pressed down on the beam. It was like, there's no beam getting lit up today. It's over.
let's stay with the Warriors, man, because now they're playing the Lakers. Fascinating stat about the Warriors: they are 19 and 0 in the playoffs against Western Conference teams under Steve Kerr. Before the
Yep.
playoffs started, I mentioned how they're 22 and 2 in playoff series with Steve Kerr in this court, which basically means, dude, if they make the playoffs, they're either winning the finals or they're losing in the finals.
Yep.
Do you think this trend continues with this Laker team who I feel I feel as this is the best LeBron team to play the Warriors that he's had?
Oh yeah, I agree. The Lakers are like they picking up steam now. It's like getting contribution from like Austin Reeves, who like stepped up. Like they have another bucket getter in him. AD's like finally healthy and like he's looking like his old self. You have guys like Rui Hachimura, who's like playing definitely way better than before. And then of course you have LeBron. Like you never count him out. But I can't pick against Steph. Like right after I saw what I saw yesterday is like there's no way. It's like they just have too many weapons, and Stephen Curry's their their main one. But like that chemistry with like Draymond, and I don't expect Clay to like shoot like how he did in Game 7. Going forward, Wiggins is just getting his like breath back. He missed a lot of games in the regular season, and he's like finally back, so he's getting his win back. Um, Jordan Poole needs to play better. But yeah, I can't pick against the Warriors against the Lakers. I'm going with Steph.
I hear everything that you're saying, but I also hear a lot of hesitancy in what you're saying, talking about the Warriors, because there are a lot of question marks, right? Like
Yeah, it is.
you could bank, and that's what I think makes the greats the greats. And it was something I was talking about yesterday. How, man, I was looking at his point total, and it was 29 and a half. This for Curry. I'm like, dude, this guy always shows up when it matters, right? Like every time it's mattered, he delivers. And then at like halftime, I was beating myself up. I'm like, man, this guy's gonna have 40, and then he ends up having 50, over 50, most points ever in a game seven. But with you breaking down this matchup, it seems as if you're more confident in what the Lakers could do night to night than you are with the Warriors, as far as the uncertainty with the other pieces besides Steph.
I don't know. I think it comes down to how Looney plays against AD. I think he was a beast. He like made Sabonis look like a little child, like just getting every rebound. So I'm like, is AD ready for that? Like that fight with Looney and like in the paint. So I think it comes down to that. And then if Steph could continue his play, I'm riding with them. It's like the Warriors didn't even play their best yesterday, and like look what happened. It's like just gotta rely on Steph.
Yeah, as you look at the line for this series, the Warriors are favored -130. The Lakers are coming back at +120. I feel as if the winner of this wins the West. Am I bugging?
I'm not ready to say that yet, and it's tough because the Suns are getting it together. The Nuggets look dangerous in Game One against them. So I have to see how this series turns out before I say the Warriors are going back.
The thing that worries me about the Lakers is Anthony Davis is always just we know his track record, right? Earlier this year, dude, I had you on the show and we were talking about AD being back, and then 2 or 3 games after we released that episode, he got hurt. And it's like this
Yeah,
guy always and in game 6 against Memphis, they're up 30. I don't know if you caught this, but they're up 30 and there's a loose ball that goes into the stands and this dude is laying out to go get it. It's like, bro, what are you doing? You're so
yep, exactly.
fragile, but you're so damn important to this team. Why are you going for that loose ball? Y'all are up 30. Like, just let it go, bro. We know your hustle and your motivation. We get it. You don't need to prove us there. If
Hey,
you're down 3-4. I get it. You're up and I get that. But yo, like, it's a little self-awareness, AD. You're too valuable, bro.
exactly. So that's why I'm worried about the Lakers, like going against someone like Jokic or like a team that's as deep as like the Suns in the next round. It's just they have too much firepower and the Warriors as well. So I think this is where the road ends for the Lakers. But it's hard to count out LeBron.
Yeah, it is. And I also think that he knows that this might be the last run
Hmm.
with the
Yeah,
contracts, and Austin Reeves, they're saying he's going to get north of like 25 million next year, and some of the other guys that are free agents, and this is the last run that I think that he has in him with this kind of a team around him. I want to pivot over to that series you were talking about. Right now, at the time we're recording, the Nuggets are up 1-0 on the Suns. You get the Suns at a plus number to win this series. It's important to note, Jarrell, that they're still a top 4 favorite to win the finals despite being down 1-0. My problem with the Suns, and it was something that I was talking about when we were previewing the entire outlet of the playoffs, is they're really they're relying a lot on Booker and Durant and Paul, and they gutted their team to get Durant, which is what always happens, right? When you want to get a guy like Durant, who's like a top 10 player all time, you got to give up a lot of pieces. And that's where the depth has kind of taken a little bit of a hit. And also, these guys in that first series were playing north of like 40 minutes. And it's going
hmm
to be one of those where they're going to run these guys to the ground. Do you think that that's going to be something that could stop the Suns, the depth and sort of
yeah.
playing these guys as much as they are?
They miss Mikal Bridges and
Oh, yeah.
Cam Johnson, like those guys that's 3 and D types who's like going to defend the best players. They're going to shoot the three. But you have KD, but so that's different.
That's fair.
Um, but I think this kind of reminds me of like that first year of LeBron in Miami. It's like KD. I'm not saying it's that, but he's still getting used to like playing with like CP3 and Booker and Aiton. So it takes time. I'm still confident in what they could do. It's just this Nuggets team is like they out to prove everyone wrong. I saw the quotes from Jamal Murray the other day about like everyone keeps talking about the bubble, but he's like, I'm really this, like I'm really him. So if he could continue his play and then on top of like matching it with like Jokic, they're a tough team to beat as well. And they have that depth because they like stack. Like they have Aaron Gordon. mad guys like off the bench as well, like a rookie like Christian Braun. So it's tough.
Yeah, the thing I always said about Jamal Murray, and for those that have been listening to VM for a long time, they know that I've coined it the Jamal Murray effect because it kind of started with him in the bubble. This is before he got paid, Jarrell, where on any given night, dude, you'd turn on a Nuggets game and you'd watch him and you'd say, "Oh shit, this guy's a top 5 guard in the league." And then the next time you watch him, you might be like, "Holy shit, they're gonna give him a max. That's horrible." Right? Like he's always been that dude throughout his whole career. And look, he had 34 in game one, dominated. And like you said, he was yapping and letting them know, like, yo, the Nuggets have been disrespected all year long, dude.
Mhm.
As a sports betting fan, they'd have like the sixth or seventh best odds to win the finals, and they had the best record in the West, like throughout the whole year.
I think it happens because the previous years, it's like
Yeah.
they're always like finish number one and like they burn out in the playoffs. So it's like, are they gonna do it again this year? And like, but Jamal's like finally healthy. Jokic is playing as always, like probably a 3-time MVP. But it's tough. I won't go against them. I think the Nuggets finally get over the hump and they're gonna go to the Western Conference Final.
Man, it's hard to disagree with you there, man, because you're right. I don't think it's fair to hold what has happened to the Nuggets the last couple of years against them because they didn't have their number 2 guy, which I
Hmm.
always talk about this, bro. Like, dude, you take the second or third best player off any team, that team's gonna struggle. And
Yep.
that's why what Jokic was doing was so fascinating because he didn't have those guys. And then Michael Porter, he gets the big contract, and then he had some back injuries and whatnot. And they bring in Aaron Gordon when they did, and Jokic was so dominant in keeping everyone afloat and getting everyone involved that it elevated the whole team. That's why he won the MVPs all those
Yep.
years. But there's something about that, man, that I really agree with you. How they're playing with that chip for being a 1 seed. Like no one respects them at all.
Mhm.
So I think that that's going to carry them also. And I think that the Suns, for as deadly as those 3 guys can be, like on any given night, they could go out there and drop 80, like those 3 guys. And then you don't need much more from the rest of the team. But on the nights when those guys don't have it, I think it's hard for them to generate points.
Yeah, and like for the Suns case, it's like you already know what you're gonna get out of KD. He's like the
Yeah.
consistency, like king, like Devin Booker as well. It's like can CP3 like hold it together as he gets a little bit older? Can DeAndre Ayton stay locked in? You know, and like they need the other guys to step up, like off the bench, and like someone like Torrey Craig, like they have to like step up. So I'm worried about them, but we'll see.
Do you want to talk about the Knicks? 'Cause I feel like you kind of like it when the Knicks stumble, bro. I don't know.
What stumble? Nah,
Yeah. Nah,
nah,
you're
nah.
not a Knicks
It's
hater?
like I'm not a Knicks hater at all, man. I can't call myself a Knicks fan. I'm like in mad group chats. Like all my best friends are like Knicks fans. But I love like when the Knicks are good. Like there's no place like Madison Square Garden. It's my favorite arena. And the NBA, as I tweeted the other day, it was like the league is so much fun when the Knicks are good. Like the fans have the best fans, no doubt about it. And like all the celebrities come out, so it's like a different stage. It's like Broadway. It's like you're watching something that's different than watching a game in like Denver. Sorry, Denver fans, but it's like it's different, and I love it. I don't know how far they're gonna go, but it's been fun to watch.
I couldn't agree with you more about the league being better when the Knicks are good. I've talked so many times that if the Knicks were ever to win a championship, the city would go absolutely ballistic.
I'm leaving the city.
Yeah, I might have to come back for that. That would be epic if that happened. But I do want to mention how, and tell me if I'm wrong, I feel like the Knicks might have lost the series in game one.
They, I thought they was gonna win, man. It's like they the biggest thing for the Knicks is that they don't have a closer. That's always been my thing. It's like everyone talks about, yo, we won we didn't get Donovan, and like we're happy about that, and like they beat the Cavaliers, but like they need that player like him to like finish games, and like they was missing Randall in the first game as well, so that there's that. But like they started off so good, and then they just got sloppy in the fourth quarter. I know a lot of fans that I know was talking about like the refs as well, but like someone like RJ, he like started off so good, and then it was like he constant complaining with the refs for like 10 minutes. I'm like, yo, bro, just play, stay locked in. Um, so it's tough, and like it's hard to count out like Jimmy Butler as well. And then you had like Gabe Vincent like playing like Stephen Curry yesterday as well. So it's gonna be interesting. I'm not ready to count them out just yet, but we'll see how it goes.
There's certain ebbs and flows in basketball games where I feel like when it goes against the team that you're rooting for, you bet on, it's a
Mhm.
recipe for disaster. And when the Knicks go into halftime only up 5, when the whole first half felt like they should have been up 25, I was
Mhm.
like, this is going to be a rough second half.
Yeah.
And dude, Spoelstra, man, some of the mismatches that he's creating, like you even saw when they played the Bucks, dude. He mentioned how he took out Bam because he knew that they were going to take out Brook. So then they were able to run that play to Jimmy Butler to send it to
Mhm.
overtime. And the coaching difference, you don't really see it in the regular season much, but
But
bro,
you see it in the
come
playoffs.
playoffs, man, the levels are just deadly. And I think he's like top 6 all time now. He in my mind, I still think like he's a young coach, but he's been
Mhm.
there for so long, dude. He's like top 6 or 7 all time in playoff wins. And I always talk about the Heat, dude, how they're a team that, especially once Jimmy Butler got there, but the Heat culture and their aura come playoff time, they're gonna be a tough out. You're gonna leave that series kind of banged up. It was like in football this year, I think every team that played the 49ers the next week lost. And it was
Yep.
because the 49ers were so damn physical every week. You're like, holy
Mhm.
shit, now I got to play on a Thursday. Like, what the hell?
Yep.
And I think that's what happens with teams that play the Heat. Like, yeah, if you get by the Heat, you're gonna go into that next series kind of hobbled. You'll be banged up. You're not gonna be at 100%. But dude, there's something about Jimmy Butler come this time of year where
And
it's just
talking about Kyle Lowry as well. It's like
he
during the
turned the
regular season,
clock too. Yeah, he saw
well, the
the
regular
Villa.
season we don't see that much, but like as soon as the playoffs start, it's like all right, he's on it. So he gave them a lot of buckets. It comes down to experience again. It's like Kevin Love didn't play that much during the regular season, but he was looking like Aaron Rodgers yesterday at the Garden, like throwing outlet passes like nonstop. So it's just that experience factor.
Kyle Lowry, man, he saw the Villanova boys and he got flashbacks of his heyday and he wanted to
It's-
stick it to him. It seemed like. What do you make of? I wanna end with this when it comes to this series. I think both places are tough to play.
Yep.
Uh, the Garden is always rocking. The Miami flu, which I've mentioned for many many years, how it's a tough place to go down there because there are a lot of distractions on South Beach that'll draw you away from the on court stuff. Do you think this is gonna be a lengthy series, or do you think this is gonna be something where Miami can maybe win it in 5? Because I'm pretty nervous about them dropping that first game, man. When they should have won that first game.
I see it going to 6, but it depends on Julius Randle coming back
Word.
because I think they missed him like a lot yesterday. Like they needed him. Like Jalen Brunson's really good. RJ, when he's like locked in, he's awesome, but he like loses focus sometimes, and like he's like getting into the with the reps like nonstop. So I think they need like some like a dog like Julius Randle. But without Randle, I think the series ends fast, like in 5. I'll say that because it's just Jimmy Butler, man. He's different come playoff time. You have Kyle Lowry. Bam is like they have a lot of pieces. It's tough to compete with, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, and you also have pieces that are comfortable in the role that they're playing, and they've been there,
Yep.
done that. So for them to come in and now you got to play 30 minutes as opposed to playing 15 for them is nothing. It's kind of just second nature. I
It
want to
is. Mhm.
good.
No, I'm just saying like it's ridiculous. It's like they lose so much. It's like they lost Tyler Hero, like they
Yeah.
lost all the people. It's like they always have like this guy that's like next up that's ready to like perform. It's like someone like Gabe Vincent yesterday was like shooting the lights out. So they're like always ready. Their scouting team, wherever they find like all these players, it's like it's top notch.
Well, yeah, it's funny how anytime they draft like a Euro dude, them or the Spurs, you're like, oh, okay, they gotta know
Yep,
something. But when any other team does it, like, yo, why are they taking this dude? Especially if the
exactly.
Knicks take a Euro dude, you're like, oh man, these idiots, here you go again. But when the Spurs or the Heat do, you're like, oh, that scouting team, they must know something we don't. Yo, everyone knows that I'm not a fan of the city of Philadelphia for many,
Mm.
many reasons.
Mhm.
However, I do feel bad for Joel Embiid, dude, and the Sixers because he is doubtful for game one. At the time that we're recording, that game will be later on tonight on Monday. Doubtful for game one. But, dude, just the run that he's had is so weird because the knock on him coming in, Jarrell, and you know this, was can he stay healthy? First couple of years wasn't healthy. And then he became healthy in the regular season. And then, dude, the last couple of years in the playoffs, he's either missed multiple games or missed a whole series with orbital fracture, a knee problem, a back problem, a hip. And now you have this injury for him also with a knee sprain. Man, they just can't catch a break in Philly, bro. And in particular, him who, he was last game of the regular season, he was like minus 1900 to win MVP. So basically, Joel Embiid is going to be the MVP this year. Do you feel bad for him in Philly?
Yeah, I feel bad, man. It's like he plays so hard, and like he's a competitor. Like compared to like other guys, like he really wants it, but it just his injury history. It reminds me of like AD. It's like these guys can't stay on the floor for some reason, but like when he's like healthy, it's like who's really better than him? Like he has it all. So it sucks that he's doubtful for game one. Like I really want to see him go against the Celtics. So Philly, it's gonna be tough for Philly, like going against the Celtics. It's like they don't have that presence inside, so it's brutal. But I definitely feel bad for him.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And you're just going to rely too much on James Harden now and all the other guys. And we know about James Harden's playoff history. If Embiid is out, like this could be a relatively quick series and, sweep or five.
Yeah, I'm like, who
Boston is
steps up?
stacked, man. Boston is stacked, and they just have so much. The biggest mismatch for the Sixers was going to be Embiid,
Yep,
and with him not there, like you're looking at 30 and 14 just being taken away from you.
yep. It's that like they're gonna have to deal with Marcus Smart, like Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown, Robert Williams. It's like they keep going at you, like Al Horford. It's like when does it end? So it's gonna be tough. But should be interesting. Like they need like guys like Maxi to step up, like take a bigger role. So I don't know if that's enough, but we'll see.
Two things before we wrap up, man, and I appreciate you coming on as always. Do you feel like seeding doesn't matter as much as it once did in the NBA? Because as you look at the matchups now going into the second round, you have an 8 seed, you have a 5 seed, you have a 7 versus 6 in the West, and then it's pretty chalk the rest of the way. But even in those series, dude, like the Hawks took them to 6.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like the league is in such a good spot where every team has 1 to 2, sometimes even 3 dudes that can be a all-star, all NBA type of dude. Where like I don't think a one losing to a 8 is as wild as it was
I I was
when
about to.
when was it? When the Bulls lost to the Sixers, and that was because Derrick Rose got hurt, right? Like I don't think it's as crazy as it once was, Jero.
I was about to say that it's like the Bucks lost to the Heat and they got him from the play-in. Like no one like talked about it that much. Like a one seed is out. It's like it's not your father's like NBA like growing up and watching. It's like any team can win. It just depends on like the matchup, a little bit of luck. Um, so it's really interesting. Like the Warriors, where are they? The 6 seed, 7 seed,
6.
um, 6 seed is like they could easily be the number one seed. It just it's a different NBA. The Lakers, the 7 seed, right? It's like it doesn't matter where you're at now in seeds. It's like how you play, health, and a little bit of luck as well.
Yeah, and especially with the NBA, like you said, it's not your father's NBA. Dudes are missing 15, 20, sometimes 30 games of regular season,
Yeah.
and they don't like LeBron and Steph, they've been everywhere and back, and then everywhere and back. They've been on the road in a game 6 when they're down. They've been on the road in a game 7, where to them it don't matter if they got to open up against Memphis on the road or against the Kings. Like that don't matter. Those guys. Maybe for younger teams, like I think it was very important for a team like the Kings to have home court. I don't think it's
Mhm.
as long as a series if it was the other way around. But dude, I agree with you, man. I think that the league is in such a good place. So many great players across the board, and it's just not as surprising as it once was. It's no
Yeah.
longer like when the We Believe Warriors beat the Mavericks. I was like, holy shit, how did that
Yeah.
happen, right?
Mhm.
But now it's not. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that you're gonna have an 8 beat a one every year. I just don't think it's gonna be as shocking as it once was.
Yeah, it's definitely not. Yeah, like the whole Jimmy thing, it's like I think people love Giannis so much. It's like they swept that under the rug that the Bucks were a number one seed, and of course he like missed a few games as well. So, but the Heat deserve credit. Like Jimmy's a beast, and they were competitive and they beat them. So yeah, I don't care about seeds anymore. It's like when it comes out, it's like let's see how they play and see where this goes.
If you had to pick an NBA Finals matchup right now, what would you pick?
Whew, I think we get in round two, Warriors and Celtics. If I had to pick today. The way like Steph was playing, it's like this man does not lose at all. And I'm not gonna bet against him now. And then out of the East, you have JT and the Celtics. It's just they're like stacked top to bottom. So I don't know who wins this series yet, but I think it's gonna be a rematch. Uh, I'm interested to know like what do you think? Like you're gonna probably pick like the Lakers and Heat, maybe.
LeBron versus his own squad, right? Nah, I wouldn't go that far. But the one thing that as you're talking about picking against Steph, I made the case for LeBron and the Lakers, how this is going to be the last time that this core is going to be together. I think you can make the same case for the Warriors too, dude, because they're going to have some
Yeah.
contracts that they're going to need to address this offseason also. So maybe they're playing like that too. And
Hmm.
you mentioned Warriors and Celtics. You can get that at plus 350 to be the finals right now. I like the Lakers. I like the Lakers and the Celtics. Talk about bringing back that rivalry. I think
Like
I
you think
I think
You really think
Boston.
the Lakers could, like, beat the Warriors and then take out the Suns and Nuggets after? Like, I don't know, man.
Yo, call me crazy, and I know you are gonna call me crazy. I think that the Lakers have a better chance beating the Warriors than they do one of the other two teams in the West.
Man, that's tough to say. I don't know. That's tough, but I respect it. And if it happens, you got it. You got it.
The Celtics are minus 250 to win the East. They're giving
Mm.
nobody a chance to win the East. It's hard to disagree with that. It's really hard to
Yeah.
disagree with that. And for me, I think it's definitely Boston. And then I'm gonna go with the Lakers. So my bet would be Lakers, Celtics. You get that at plus 680. Jarrell's you get at plus 350. You take the two favorites, which is not bad, and you'd get paid out in a month by the time that the conference finals come out. Jarrell, this was awesome, bro. I appreciate you making the time. I wish you nothing but the best with everything you're working on. Tell the people what you're working on and where they could follow this Achilles rehab comeback story.
Yeah, man. Just looking for like the next phase, writing, editing. I wrote a story for GQ last week. Did the NBA Sneaker Awards, so looking forward to contributing more with them. On the road to recovery with this Achilles, I'll be back stronger than ever. And of course, still building up Sunday Wash Club. I'm trying to get JJ Redick to pull up now,
Let's
so we'll see.
go. That'd be dope, man. That'd be dope. Dude, this was a good time. I appreciate you. I'll make sure to have all the links to everything that you are involved with in the description of the episode. And we'll be back in 1 second, guys, talking a little bit about the NFL draft and then have a guest to close out the show. Shout out to Jarrell, as always, for making time to come on the show. I'm going to do that over. Shout out to Jarrell, as always, making time to come on the show. Whenever we call him, he answers, and wish him nothing but the best with that Achilles injury. I do want to touch a little bit on the NFL draft before we get into an episode that I recorded with Robert Babs, who is a TikTok content creator, a owner of a third division hockey team out in Austria, I believe it was, or Poland, somewhere in Europe. Really fun conversation. We talked some sports betting on there and his love for hockey and football. But I do want to talk a little bit about the NFL draft. And you guys know from following the show all these years or just knowing my approach to the NFL draft, I'm not a fan of giving out grades. I think it's really dumb. I think we have no idea what these players are going to turn out. But what I do like doing, and it is very important, is understanding what each team's approach was for the draft. There are a couple of teams that I liked what they did in the draft based on a need or the value of a position that needed to be addressed and getting the kind of player that can help them. Now, I don't know if this guy is going to be a Hall of Famer. I don't know if this guy is going to get a second contract. I don't know if this guy is going to get out the league because I've talked about this so many times. The history of the NFL first round. This is the first round picks, and this is the cream of the crop. A third of the league is going to get a second contract, and you're just going to be happy with, all right, this right guard is going to be okay. He's not going to be an all-pro, but he's going to be fine. A third of the first round is not going to get a second contract in the NFL. They'll be out the league. And then the other third of the first round, those guys are going to be your Pro Bowlers, your all-pros, guys that are going to be franchise building blocks for you. So it's a big unknown, I should say, what the first round is going to be. But there are a couple of teams that I really like what they did. The Eagles. Holy shit. How do they get away with this? They paid Jalen Hurts. They gave him his money. They have so much talent on this roster. And then they go and they get 2 first-round picks from Georgia, the Georgia defense, who the 2021 Georgia Bulldogs, who won the national championship, all 11 players got drafted into the NFL. Astonishing. They're basically Bama 2.0 that we've grown up with the last 5 to 6 years. So they get Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. And then they had Jordan Davis last year. They partner up the Georgia boys again. You still got Fletcher Cox there. Oh, man. I'm just thinking about the front 7 alone in Philly is going to be a nightmare. And then they went and they continued to bolster some of the offensive line and some of the other things that they needed to address also. Some secondary help, too. You got to love what Philly is doing. I like what Pittsburgh is doing, staying with the state of Pennsylvania. The guard from Georgia they got. And now you're building your roster the right way. You guys know how I like building an NFL roster. You find a quarterback, you protect him, and then you go after theirs. So they go and they get Broderick Jones out of Georgia, the offensive tackle who started 2 years at Georgia. They go and they get the tight end, Washington from Georgia, who that dude blew up at the combine, was making all these ridiculous catches. And he's like 6'7", a monster over the middle for a young guy like Kenny Pickett. And then a little bit of a Pittsburgh Steeler family reunion, getting Joey Porter Jr., the cornerback, which they need some cornerback help in Pittsburgh. And I love what Pittsburgh did. I also really like what Chicago did. Chicago took an offensive lineman in the first round. They found a quarterback in Justin Fields that they like. You know how I know that they like Justin Fields? They traded out of the number 1 pick to acquire more assets, get him a wide receiver to help build around Justin Fields. And then you take an offensive lineman in the first round to protect him. And then all of their day 2 picks, all 3 of them went to the defense because they needed defense. Defense was a liability for them. And if you're looking at Chicago, man, I know everybody is on Detroit. Everybody's on Detroit. And that segues into what the hell was Detroit doing? Taking a running back in the first round, them in Atlanta. It's not the running back position for you to take a running back early. It needs to be a luxury pick for you, in my opinion. That's why I didn't like when the Giants took Saquon Barkley, because that wasn't a luxury pick. When the Chiefs won the Super Bowl and they took CEH the next year, that was a luxury pick at the time when we're looking at what the Chiefs had. They had Tyreek Hill, they had Sammy Watkins, they had all these weapons on offense. Their defense still had Tyrann Mathieu. Chris Jones was emerging as one of the premier defensive linemen in the league. They had a lot of talent on that team. So you're like, you know what? We're good. We got Mahomes on a rookie contract. Let's take a swing on CEH and see what happens. When you take a running back in the first round, it's a luxury. And Atlanta has a lot of holes. Talking to Alan, who comes on the show often, he'll be on next week. when I told him Bijan Robinson because he wasn't watching the draft at the time it was going down. He goes, "Oh God, running back in the first round." And then Detroit does that a couple picks later. Who Detroit is everyone's darling and sleeper. I do the air quotes because they're not really a sleeper. There's so much buzz around Detroit. And I think it was a little bit of a letdown for those two franchises where they have so many holes on their team that you don't go and you take a running back. I thought that was a mistake. I do want to mention that Lamar Jackson got paid, and Baltimore is taking care of him, not only financially, but on the field also. They take a wide receiver in the first round who's super explosive, and now you pair him up with Bateman, who you took a couple years ago in the first round, one of the more elite tight ends in the league in Mark Andrews, a stable offensive line, and now you add Odell Beckham Jr. So before, when we were nitpicking at Baltimore not having any weapons for Lamar outside of a tight end, now you're looking at it and you're saying, oh, okay, we got some weapons for Lamar. Now he can actually prove to us even more. Now, I shouldn't say prove because he's definitely proved, especially if you've been listening to the show. I've been, banging the drums for Lamar all these years. Now they're giving him more weapons to be successful. So I like what Baltimore did, spending a first-round pick on a wide receiver. And then lastly, a team that I think the more I look at them, the more very intrigued by their odds is Seattle. Seattle, because the NFC is so bad, Seattle might be a top 5 team in the NFC. Look, they made the playoffs last year. I think Seattle's gotten better. They draft a cornerback, Witherspoon, out of Illinois in the first round. And then they get Jackson Smith from Ohio State, who Ohio State, every wide receiver that they get, if you look at the NFL, every wide receiver from Ohio State that goes into the NFL has been very, very productive. Garrett Wilson, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave. Like, these guys are legitimate game wreckers. And now you're adding this guy to Seattle where he's not being asked to be the number one wide receiver. They have Tyler Lockett still. They have DK Metcalf. Now you add him into the mix for Geno Smith, who could spread the ball around. I think that's a really good move for Seattle. So for me, the teams that I think left the draft with the right approach were the Bears, the Eagles, the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Seahawks. A little confused as to what Atlanta and Detroit did, but we'll have to wait and see. I do know that Bijan Robinson is definitely going to be a very popular pick amongst fantasy leagues, amongst fantasy players, and even Rookie of the Year odds because he's going to get the ball north of 350 times. And Atlanta was the number 3 team in rush DVOA last year. So he's going into a system that definitely loves to run the ball. Remember, Arthur Smith is from Tennessee, where he had Derrick Henry, and they ran the ball all over the place and all the time. So it's going to be interesting over the next couple of weeks. We do have to mention that the NFL schedule is coming out in 2 weeks, and then that's when we're really going to lock in on some of our win totals and some of the futures that we mentioned. Because for me, I don't make any big claims or decisions on the NFL upcoming season until I get the schedule, because the schedule is very important. Your team is either going to get buried or it's not. If your team comes out the gates and they play 9 playoff teams from the year before, or they play 9 teams in a row from week 1 to 9 that all are based on the odds expected to be a playoff team, it's going to be a rough road for you. It's going to be a rough road for you. Are you playing 9 straight elite quarterbacks? That's why the schedule is so important, because there you can understand, hey, maybe I shouldn't bet the Chiefs at plus 800 to win the Super Bowl, because their first 5 games are at Buffalo, at Cincinnati, home to the Cowboys, and then on the road against Philly. And you're looking at it like, yo, they might be 1-3. Maybe that plus 800 in October is plus 1,400, plus 1,500. Maybe Kelsey pulls a hamstring and he's out for 6 weeks, and they're counting that too. So that's why the schedule to me is when I put my foot down and I say, these are the bets that I'm going to make. These are the bets that I'm putting money aside for. I need the schedule. And the schedule comes out May 11th, and we'll know more then. So those are my thoughts on the NFL draft. Now you'll hear a conversation with my guy Robert from last week. I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll catch you guys next time on Veterans Minimum. Yes, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to Veterans Minimum. I'm your host, Nick Deus. At Nick Deus 10, as you can find me. VeteransMinimum.com for all things VM. Joining me now is a guy I connected with through social media, which is how pretty much everyone connects with
100%.
nowadays. A Canadian, the first Canadian I've had on the podcast in here, and also a part owner of a soccer team. You got to tell me about that, Rob.
Yeah, so Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds own part of Wrexham.
Yeah, they just got promoted.
Yeah, so I was watching their show, Welcome to Wrexham, and I'm like, I wonder if I could buy in somewhere. Like, this would be good for content, and like, I just want that. Like, they got me thinking. So I ended up coming across a team that's fan-owned, and then I reach out to the CEO of the team, and I'm like, hey, like, I've got a big following on social media. Like, we should talk. He just calls me up right away. He's like, what would you want to do? And I'm like, I want to talk about your team. Like, I think this is cool. You actually have like real fan engagement within a fan-owned team in Austria in the third division. They play in front of mountains. Like, you look up from the pitch, snow-capped mountains. So I want to get involved, and then just, everything kind of spiraled from there. And now I make videos all the time about our men's and women's team. Our women's team is winning their games 8-0. Absolutely insanity. And our men's team is doing pretty well too. So it's just some wild thing I got into because I'm a child with adults' money.
Yeah, how old are you?
I'm 28.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Damn. Born and raised in Canada?
Yeah, so I grew up in Belleville, Ontario. No one knows where it is. It's between Toronto and Ottawa, and I'm glad I left.
Dude, you could tell you're Canadian.
Yeah.
The accent is pumping right now. I love it.
Yeah, people have made comments about that in my videos. Like, that's fake, right? And I'm like, no, this is just how I talk.
Dude, I love Toronto. I went to school in Buffalo.
Oh, yeah.
I would go to Montreal almost every other month,
Mm-hmm.
and I love it up there, man. Not in the winter.
No.
Winter, it's not a good time. Definitely not a good time. But the summer is dope. I went for OVO Fest a couple of years, and then I went 2 times to just go to. I got addicted to playing poker at one point in my life, so I was
Yeah.
going up there to these World Series of poker events and whatnot. And it's a good time though. Toronto is definitely a good time.
Yeah, like the one thing people like in the United States are like, oh, where are you from? And I just say like, oh, I'm from near Toronto. I live like an hour and 20 minutes outside of Toronto in like a small university town. But like everyone's like, oh, and they ask you a bunch of questions about like what the weather's like and stuff like that. But the summers in Canada are like pretty dope. Like it's a little bit humid, but the weather's nice. Just don't come to Canada in like December or January, you know?
You are a hockey coach as well, right?
Yeah.
Hockey's your main love?
Yeah, so up into the
Pretty
pandemic.
obvious. I was like minus 500 being from Canada.
Yeah, so up until the pandemic, I was coaching pro hockey in the States, and when that hit, things got a little squirrely, especially for the minor leagues too, because like there was nothing going on. Like you can't have 100 people watching a minor league game. That just doesn't work. That's where all the revenue is from. It's beer and ticket sales. So my team got sold like 2 months into the pandemic, and I'm like, what am I going to do here? Because the new owner of the team didn't want to give me a raise. I deserved one, so I said, you know what? I'm sitting out. I sat out the year. They wanted to bring me back, but I'm like, I want more money, and it just wasn't going to work out. And then the next year, I just was like, I was bored, so I started posting videos about Call of Duty, and I built up like a gaming channel and stuff. And I was just like, I got to do something. And that's how this whole thing started. Now I'm like a content creator just because COVID basically knocked my career out. And I went, all right, let's do something different. But hockey is like my thing. When I was like 12 years old, I could tell you every minor league and tell you every guy that played on the Leafs, every single one of them.
UFC and hockey are probably my 2 favorite sporting events to go watch in person.
Oh, yeah, man. The UFC at the Apex with no sound, no crowd noise is the dopest thing in the world. Watching guys get hit and you just hear that impact and everything. It's one of the craziest things to see live. I'll see MMA over hockey live every time.
Oh, yeah, without question. I want to hold off on the MMA stuff. We'll get to that in just a sec. But I'm fascinated by the popularity of hockey in this country.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Rangers. That's my team. I can tell you about the Rangers. I can't tell you really much about anything else. And also hockey on a national level doesn't do that well.
Yep.
Right? Like I think I was going to say the NFL draft, but the NFL draft crushes a lot of other things. But like Stanley Cup finals barely get any attention in here. But in Canada, it's the number 1 sport. One of my closest friends is Dylan. He's been on the show a bunch, and we've had these conversations in the past. I'm like, dude, why isn't hockey bigger? Like hockey's dope. It's hard to score, and I'm a soccer kid.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my first love was and what I grew up on. And there's a lot of similarities between soccer and hockey. You have an offsides, though in hockey it's the line where it's in soccer it's the last man, but it's difficult to score. There's always a roar in the crowd when a goal does get scored because it doesn't happen all the time. Like in the NBA and the NFL, someone scores a touchdown. It's not. It's it's an ovation, but it's not like holy shit, beers flying everywhere. People are rushing the fields and stuff. It's just because it's harder to score. That was always something I gravitated to. And dude, I've probably watched more hockey playoffs than I have basketball playoffs because hockey, the games are a lot closer. They're funner. I love betting hockey overs in the playoffs. Why isn't hockey bigger in this country?
I think there's a few reasons for that. One of the reasons is like the accessibility of hockey in the Western United States is expensive. Not possible. It's so expensive.
Yeah.
And then let alone like most of the good elite hockey is on the East Coast. If you're looking at junior hockey, college hockey, and then most of the junior hockey, the best is in Canada. And Americans just leave and go up north. So I think there's a lot of accessibility problems with it. And the access just a good competitive hockey. If you look at where all the minor leagues are located, most of it is on the East Coast. So, you don't have an easy ticket to take your average family out to, and the NHL is becoming more and more expensive. So I think that's a factor. The lack of scoring, I think, is part of it too, though. Like, I think some people look at that and they're like, oh, this isn't exciting. There's not 17 baskets. And, I mean, you couldn't pay me to watch the NBA. But I think, it's just the way things are laid out in terms of the structure and the system that hockey operates under, it doesn't benefit the United States very well. And that's why I think they're in the West Coast more specifically. But as a whole, there just really isn't a market for it.
But it's also expensive to play if you're a young kid. Dude, one of my good friends, Steven Esposito, he ended up being the captain for 2 years at NYU. When he got there, they were a Division III school, and then they got up to D1 or D1 AA around there. But he had won a national championship in Division III. And he did the after high school, the juniors route. He played there. And then when he was a freshman in college, he was like 22 years old, which usually you're a senior, you've graduated. But that's like the conventional route for hockey guys. And the one thing that I remember is we drove to Vermont. Yeah, I think it was Vermont or Maine. Anyway, somewhere like further northeast. And we were watching him play in the juniors. And his stick broke. And his dad was like, fuck. I was like, yo, what's wrong? Like, he didn't get hurt. He's like, dude, that's $350 down the drain. And it was like his first or second shift. He had just gotten this stick. He's like, God damn it. And then I was thinking, I was like, oh shit, it's similar with soccer. Like, one of the big issues I think soccer has in this country is that for you to play at a high level in club soccer for a summer, the parents are going to have to pay like $5,000-$6,000. That's a lot, bro. That's like 2 mortgages for some people.
Yeah, and like if you're playing junior hockey right now and you're not at the highest level where you're getting everything paid for, at least like 20 grand Canadian, I would say you'd have to put aside for a season as just your average junior player.
How long is the season?
Like September to April, depending on how long you go, maybe a bit earlier. But yeah, 20 G's probably if you're playing anything below like the OHL.
Damn, bro.
Yeah, it's tough. And part of the reason why there's a problem with it is the systems over in Europe are much more accessible for guys that actually cost a lot less money. And it works differently. And our market is set up to benefit the NHL, not anything else. And it's a problem.
What you just said there is exactly it. Because I've always talked about how the reason why soccer is not going to be bigger in this country is because we value the education system. It's not a bad thing. What I'm saying is when a kid is 14, 15, 16 years old here, you're still in high school. Dude, in Europe, if you're a prodigy at 14, 15, 16, they take you out of school, they put you in an academy. And then if you're really good at like 17, you're playing on the men's team. If you're playing for Arsenal, Barcelona, whatever it might be. And then what happens is those guys play at the men's level at 16, 17 years old. Our guys are still in high school. Then they go to college because that's what you have to do. You graduate college, you get drafted to the MLS, you're 21, 22. Let's just say 22. The dude in Europe has been playing professional 6 years where you're just coming out and now you're, all right, yo, now go play professional. There's always going to be a barrier of competition that you're going to have to surpass, where in Europe, it's not like that. That's why you see the best American players right now that we have in soccer. They've all been in Europe since they were 14, 15 years old. And the parents, like Pulisic, they took him from Hershey, Pennsylvania to Germany when he was 14. And everyone here was like, yo, you're crazy. You're killing your kid's education and his future. It's like, yo, this kid has something. Like, everyone's telling us that he's this prodigy. Let's bring him over there. It worked out. And I'm sure for every Pulisic, there's thousands of guys that, now they're suffering from it. But I think the way it is in Europe for soccer, and then from what you're saying from hockey, there's a lot of parallels, bro.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think that's with hockey, it's the money. It's also the money here in the States, but also it's just the levels, dude,
Mhm.
when you're at that age.
Yeah, and I think one factor that you have to look at too is when you're over in Europe, just things are easier if you don't have a lot of money with how much the accessibility for education is for guys and stuff like that. And over here, you got to grind hard because you need that scholarship. They don't have the same problem, right? And when you're looking at hockey too, I think promotion and relegation also impacts the North American system quite a bit. Because if you had more of a chance for smaller people to enter the market or just guys to get opportunities in a different way, it's so structured in silos. In Europe, they don't have those silos. You can work your way up. I think that accessibility to it and the fact that it's really hard when you have no money and you're playing in the 5th level pro hockey in North America versus, trying to work your way up with a team in Europe at that level, it's a bit different. You make more money, but you have the opportunity to move to a higher level just with the team you're in with right now. It's a harder ladder to climb.
That'll never be able to happen in
Nope.
the States.
Never.
There's just too much money involved.
No, and the MLS actually has in their bylaws that you're not allowed to do that in promotion and relegation. They can't even have a conversation about it. So I think that hurts things hockey-wise, soccer-wise too. Like it's just you can't have a local team necessarily work their way up. And in Europe, that happens all the time. You get the support. Look at Wrexham. I mean, that's a huge deal. Never happened in Canada though.
Dude, the biggest upset in sports history, the biggest underdog, I should say, from a betting perspective, was Leicester City in 2015, 2016. 5,000 to 1. Because of them, the highest that sports books go now on average is like 2,000 to 1 because of that. And they were a team that they were favored by like $3 to get relegated that year. And then they won the Premier League.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a team that now, currently in the EPL, they're battling relegation. They've been in the Premier League since then. And that's the big appeal to sports in Europe, which is fascinating because I have these conversations with some of my American buddies because I grew up a soccer kid, like I mentioned before, so I know about that culture. And they're blown away when they're first introduced, like, yo, where was this team in La Liga last year? It's like, yo, they weren't. They got promoted up. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, dude, bottom 3 or 4, depending on what league it is, they get dropped down, and then the top 2 from the second division come up. And then it's like a 50 million euro profit that they see, or pound, whatever it is in Euro in Great Britain. So it's the level of competition is always so interesting because like Wrexham now is, dude, they have the most social media followers, more social media followers than some Premier League teams.
Yeah.
It's because obviously Ryan Reynolds is there, but that'll never happen here.
No, and like I'm a Sunderland fan. People make fun of me for that, but like they got relegated all the way down and they're working their way up. And part of the reason why I like it so much is the fact that like you care about the bottom of the table too. And the standings in the NHL right now, no one cares what the Montreal Canadiens are doing. The fans don't want to watch. Well, give something for the fans to watch when you might get relegated. There's a reason to be there. There's a reason to care. So it also keeps the teams honest. You can't just spend no money like the Oakland Athletics. Oakland would be playing single A baseball right now.
Triple A maybe. Yeah, that's true because when it's, dude, I remember Everton last season. They're down 2-0 at halftime and they needed a win to stay in the Premier League. I also live bet them at 20 to 1, so that's why I definitely remember that game. But they were playing at home and they're down 2-0. And the way the fans celebrated when they won 3-2, you would have thought that England won the World Cup.
Yep.
Because everyone over there was bugging out. They're like, yo, we didn't get sent down. We have another year in the Premier League. And that's something that the money is too big here for everyone. Like imagine if Jaguars are a bad example now because they actually have a good team, but if the Bears, who had the number 1 pick, got sent to the XFL, and then you had like the Vipers come up, like it would never work.
No, the infrastructure alone doesn't make it functional. But imagine if that did happen, though.
Like you said, it would keep teams honest.
Yep.
It would make you not sacrifice your season in the campaign.
Oh, yeah, and like you look at the NHL, teams were really tanking and selling, and you look at all the guys that got traded around. The Eastern Conference got stacked because guys are like, oh, let's sell everybody. Let's just try and get the first overall pick and get these good guys off the ice. I think keeping them honest is important, but at the same time too, like when you're losing and you haven't won a lot of games in a while and you're at the bottom of the table, the fans actually still care, and it just incentivizes more. So I think that like Sure, it could happen if they like change a lot of stuff, but you don't have the facilities to execute that. And actually, like any of the sports, because an AHL rink cannot go to the NHL, period. They wouldn't be able to make money unless you're the Arizona Coyotes playing in front of 3,000 people. But that's a unique situation for some reason.
One of the things I wanted to discuss with you was you being from Canada. What is sports betting like over there?
Dude.
Is it allowed? Is it finally, are we good to go? Can we degen?
Yeah, we can
Because
degen.
that's one of the reasons why I don't like going to Canada. Because if I can't parlay, I'm not going.
It's wild. All the big European books you would see when you're watching soccer moved into Ontario. It's legalized. We got DraftKings. All the big ones are there.
Now, is it just in Ontario or can you do it in Vancouver?
It's expanding across. I think like Alberta's got some stuff going on. But yeah, Ontario is the one that opened up the most so far.
I got a lot of fans in Canada. If my show is sports betting and they can't dabble, it's not a good look for me. You know what I'm saying?
You can do a lot of stuff now, and it's interesting. Line shopping is real serious in Ontario right now if you're trying to get down. And they're really incentivizing with promos right now. So if like theoretically, if you wanted to go degen for like a month, you could really take advantage depending on what time of year it is. Now that's gonna, like it's done in the United States, those promos are starting to dry up a little bit. But
well, what happened was New York City laid out the blueprint, and then everyone followed by saying, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Because what New York City did was, it was around January of 2022. It was week 18 in the NFL, was the first weekend. That Sunday was the first time that you could make legal sports bets on all the apps. And immediately what they did was they were giving everyone bonuses. Every single book, dude. And me, I had all of them. Not only did I have all of them, you know who else did? My grandma, my aunt, my dad, my mom. Everyone had the apps. And I was depositing because they were giving you a 300% match deposit and, you know, reload bonuses and all this shit that they were giving. They were giving you money. Dude, there were some apps I'm not going to mention because they're not a sponsor, and until they pay, then I'll mention them. But there were some apps where they were giving you money just by signing up.
Yeah.
$300, $500. Now, eventually, for you to take out your money, you had to make a deposit. There was a bunch of loopholes. But what was funny was there were reports that were coming out, Rob, where they were like, oh, we have the most women users. It's like, yeah, no shit. Because I took my grandma, my aunts, and my mom's phone so I could put bets in and take advantage of this. Yeah. And dude, what I was doing was I would bet one side on two phones. This is with the free money. Mm-hmm. One side on two phones and one side on the other two phones. And I'd just pair against them. And I'd have like $1,000 on each side. And then it's free money now, right? So I haven't lost anything. This is how you took advantage of these bonuses. And then when the Rams won by more than 3 against the Cardinals on that Monday Night Football playoff game, I was like, all right, well, now I'm not going to use these two phones. Hey, Mom, Grandma, don't worry about the apps. We don't need it no more. Mm-hmm. Now I got my phone and Dad's phone, and now I got $1,000 to play on each phone. Dude, it was the best. We called it the sportsbook stimulus checks in New York City.
Man, the amount of people that are bearding in Ontario right now from other places and doing all the sorts of stuff to get that advantage, it's huge right now. Like I've talked to some people, they're like, oh yeah, my buddy has me set up a laptop in my house. He just remote accesses my computer, does all the stuff. It's insane now. One thing that's surprising though, when you look at all this is the volume of people betting on certain sports across different jurisdictions. Ontario, there's a lot of hockey stuff going on right now because of playoffs. And as that stuff all expands out, man, I think there's going to change a lot of stuff. Like I had a bunch of my bets canceled in Ontario. They're like, oh, we have to change to a .ca now. And I had all my NFL futures canceled. And I'm like, what? And they're like, oh, it's just regulations and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of stuff still changing with it, and they're still trying to, figure it out a little bit. But yeah, I like being in Ontario right now with just the pure volume. I think there's like 26 sports books, and I haven't heard of half of them.
Oh, I believe it. This might be one of the worst places to sports bet.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
As far as the apps go, they're all outdated, really bad. The casinos want to keep you in the casino physically, right? Like that's what they would prefer. But dude, I had about 12 of the 13 apps. No, I had every possible app in New York City. I had. And when I went back home for the first time 2 weeks ago, I opened up the apps, and the first thing I did when I landed, this is how you know that I'm loyal to the game, ladies and gentlemen, is even though I'm 32 years old, I text my mom that I landed. And then from there, close the text. I opened up all the books from back home. Anyone giving any bonuses, any promos? Oh, okay, you are, right? Up to 500 you're matching? Say less. And then I have my best of the weekend.
Yeah.
But I also think, I know I'm having fun with this. And for the people that are in Canada that are being introduced to these promotions, dude, take advantage of them.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, because in a way you're playing with their money. When they're giving you up to $500 they're matching, it goes a long way, and you could do some serious damage in the beginning. And then what I did was I put $500 on an app. They gave me $500, and then when I hit the first bet, I took out my $500. So now I'm playing legit with house money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of people are getting the bad information that the books are putting out about same game parlays, and you can hit these 17 leg things, and they're getting pushed with a lot of stuff. In Ontario, like if you watch a hockey game right now, I swear 8 out of 10 ads during the hockey game are sports books, and they're pushing all this stuff. And I think the public, it being so new in Ontario, is probably getting quite rinsed. But over time, I think these bonuses are probably going to dry up quite a lot. But also the public, you're going to have some conversations with people about like, hey, like, yeah, you can't hit that 14 leg parlay every night, even though they make it seem like you can.
Well, the sports books are also, for every one guy like me that turned a big profit, I'm sure there's tens of hundreds of people that ran through the promotional and they lost their money.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I had some friends that got crushed. Like they lost all their money and that's part of the game.
Yep.
But I also had the loopholes of changing things around and, taking advantage of other phones and other services. But that's what sports betting culture is right now in 2023 and beyond, where everyone wants that 10-leg parlay, that $5 can buy you a $500,000 house, because you see these pop up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And for every one of those that you see, probably like hundreds of thousands of parlays that don't get cashed.
Well, I bet it's millions.
Yeah. I was trying to be polite to make people not feel as bad. So, yeah, that's dope. That's the big appeal. But people like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun, especially when you see it. Like I've had a friend that turned $10 into like 28K. I'm like, holy shit, that's dope. Like I know this idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Like anytime touchdown score. You can't really do that out here. But it's also these public books. That's the reason why they're so popular, because they offer that to you.
Yeah, and I think there's some ways to take advantage of like the same game parlays. There's correlations within those. If you're smart and you can pick those things, yeah, sure. Like it's not always the greatest odds, but you can make a smart same game parlay if you're correlating stuff. But yeah, like some people just try and tie in so much stuff, and I go like, I understand that it's fun, but if you lost your bet by the first quarter and you got 3 more quarters to go, like, what are you gonna do? You're just gonna try and get it back? And I think that's when you see things start to snowball a little bit.
That's another thing with these same game parlays, because they pay you out right away.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have 2 guys to score a touchdown and they both score touchdowns on the first 2 drives, well, I just made $120 or whatever it is. And then what do? You put that back into the second quarter and third quarter. And I was not always like this. It took me a while to really get disciplined with it, because I like to say, and I should ask you this, do you think there's a difference between gambling and betting?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, and having Bill Krakenberger, or somebody I talk to a lot, like he's like, "Oh, send me your stuff," and that really made me tight, because he's like, "Yeah, I want to see what you're doing this week," and I'm like, "Oh," and then I start thinking about stuff, and I'm like, "Would he like this? Would I want to bet this?" And so I started to tighten my stuff up, and I'm like, now I'm like looking for positive EV, looking for arbitrage opportunities, and like really trying to be smart with it. As before, I was just betting stuff I liked. I think then, there's a big difference between gambling and betting, and I think that's something over your age or experience doing the thing. You really start to develop, and you realize like, no, I'm not gambling. I'm trying to make money.
Oh yeah, there's information that goes into this. There's trends. There's the optics of what you're observing and taking in, and also public perception. Like I have a friend, I won't mention his name, but any pick he tells me in the NFL, I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna empty out the bank on the other side. It's like he's picking like 83% the other way. So I do have friends like that too. And also people in sports media also. Like for me, I don't listen to anyone when it comes to sports betting. I feel like I know enough about the sports that I do know, right? Mm-hmm. If today after this we go over to a sports book and you're like, yo, I like these 3 games, I'll throw $20, $25 on a parlay. I'm like, oh, fuck it. Especially if we were to watch the games.
Yep.
That I'm gambling, but I also like to have fun with it, dude.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like that. I feel like a lot of people in sports betting, they gotta, I'm up 97 units and I haven't had a losing weekend in 63 weeks. It's like, dude,
no,
have some fun with it too, right? Like I'm a $25 to $100 better. In the UFC, because I feel like there I do have an edge on a lot of the books. And in some NFL spots I do like my favorite spot in the NFL is when a team I think is good, I've handicapped as a good team, gets blown out on prime time. If I could just bet that, dude, 70%, maybe even higher. Because then the line is inflated in one way or another. And you can find so much value, the buzzword that everyone likes to throw around, because it's, oh shit, I just saw the Bengals lose by 30. And now where they should be a 7-point favorite at home, now they're a 3-point favorite. Oh, it's an autoplay. So there are certain spots like that where there I'll probably bet more on it. But for the most part, I feel like a lot of people in sports betting, they try to put that $10 parlay to win 10K. It's like, dude, as long as you know that there's sucker bets, like futures and player props, like gotta lead the league in rushing. I know there's sucker bets. I know a guy could just blow out his hamstring and then, all right, well, there goes that $50. But as long as I know it's a sucker bet or it's a dumb bet, I have fun with it. Why not? I don't think there's a problem with that.
Yeah, and I said, like, one thing I did this year to make sure, because sometimes people text me stuff. If I like something, somebody texts me, I'll bet a quarter unit. I won't go heavy on it.
All right.
And if I'm looking at player props, like I bet MVP stuff, quarter unit, nothing higher than that. I try and like fix things, and then when I really like that thing that actually has value, sure, I'll go up to like 5 units on something, but I try and really keep it strict. But I have some bet, like I have Brock Purdy to win MVP. I know that's a silly bet. Probably shouldn't make that bet, but I like Brock Purdy. I think he's a good story. Could he potentially not start the season? Yeah, but it's a quarter unit. I'm not going to cry about that.
Dude, you're talking to someone who every year I bet the second year quarterback to win MVP. Every year. I bet Fields last year. I bet Trey Lance. I bet Kenny Pickett this year. Probably dumb because you got to think of it. For you to win MVP, you got to throw like 40 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Right? Kenny Pickett ain't throwing 40 touchdowns. I know they were 6-1 to close out the year. Pittsburgh is a team that I really like. The more I'm gathering information, but second year QBs, why not? Brock Purdy. I did Trevor Lawrence last year. He finished like, I think, top 10, but halfway through the year, it wasn't looking too hot. But I just blindly always, Justin Herbert, his second year, Kyler Murray, his second year. I'll never forget. It wasn't until they played the Patriots where he got hurt and then he stopped running. But after that Hail Murray play against the Bills, dude, it was him and I forgot who the other guy was. It was like minus 110 either way. And I was like, yo, I'm holding 40-1. I was like, oh shit, let's go. And then he ended up not winning MVP, but second year trend. It's been going on for a couple of years now where when you go back to Carson Wentz, I know he didn't win MVP, but that was his second year. And before he got hurt against the Rams, he was like minus 500 to win MVP. So basically he was MVP if he just played those last 2 games. That was 2017. And 2018 was Mahomes in his second year. Then you had Lamar Jackson in his second year. And then there was a run of guys that would finish top 3, top 5 in their second year. So I'm with it, man, with Brock Purdy.
One thing about Trevor Lawrence, though, I kind of, I give that first year, like it's like a half year. Like there was a lot of stuff going on that first year.
That's a good point.
I'm heavy on the Jags this year. Like the Jags are my team. I've gone through between them and the Giants, but I'm mostly on the Jags right now. I think the Jags are going to do a lot of stuff. So I've taken several futures on them and locked up a fair amount of money. So let's hope the Jags have a good year.
So you've already dabbled in NFL futures?
Yeah, I've locked in maybe like 20 things.
Wow, 20.
Yeah. Some of it's quarter unit stuff, so I'm just like some of it's like some of the more fun things, but like in terms of divisional and then some of the Super Bowl stuff, I've locked in a few. Coach of the Year, I think Doug Peterson's got that one, but I've locked in some futures early just to try and get the value. The Jags, I think it's like plus 2,500 to win the Super Bowl now, so yeah, it's like 300, but it's one of those things I tried to make sure I got down early on the stuff I liked, because if I realize I liked it in June or July, then I'm not getting the value I want then, right? So I tried to just get the stuff I wanted locked in early, and I know I'm holding units up, and not everyone likes doing that. I've locked in a lot of my units in just futures, but I liked what I took so far, so
I do like the Jaguars a lot. I love Calvin Ridley coming into
the that's why I like it.
He's one of us. And I say that respectfully, but he likes to degen. Been talking about that the last couple of episodes. But I do like the Jaguars. I think they could be a sneaky top seed, like bye week. Last year I had the Eagles 30-1 to have the best record in football. Those are some of my favorite bets to make. I made a dumb one. I took the Saints to have that just because the NFC is so bad. And I'm very big on Derek Carr. I love Derek Carr. I think he's severely underappreciated, especially how his tenure ended with the Raiders. But Jaguars is one. I made a Super Bowl bet on the Broncos at 50-1. I'm buying into Sean Payton being the reason that turns, sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Revitalizes Russell Wilson. Because you look at the roster, they have the best defense in the league.
Arguably, yeah.
I don't think it's arguable, truthfully. And the reason why is because the offense was so bad last year. The offense was so bad, and there were so many 3-and-outs. And they were in the top 5 of minutes played, like time of possession. They were bottom 5, so that means that the defense is on the field a lot. And they were still putting up enough of a fight despite getting nothing from your offense. And, dude, Denver lost, I think, 8 of their 10 losses were by 1 score. So history shows you in the last 30 years, I talked about this recently, teams that lose 80% of their games by 1 score, the next year tend to win close to 70% of their games by 1 score. Because I talk about that. That's my favorite thing to handicap. Like Minnesota Vikings, under, guaranteed. 8.5. They had the best record ever, NFL history in 1-score games. It's just that call is not going to go your way. That fumble that Dalvin Cook had that fell into the lap of Kirk Cousins or some shit, you can't account for that every year. The pass interference that got called for you, next year it doesn't. So Denver, going back to them, 50-1, I was like, I think that's a mistake. I'm also banking on Sean Payton and the defense. This is a bet on Sean Payton and the defense. It sucks, similar to the Jaguars, that they're in the AFC. Because, dude, the AFC is so stacked, especially now with Rodgers going in there, confirmed.
Yep. Yeah, one thing, I like the Broncos, too. I've got some stuff on them. I'm really banking on the Eagles' downfall, though. I think a lot of personnel has come out of there, and I think that early, that's going to be a bit of a problem for them. That's why I'm banking on the Giants so heavy. I don't like Dallas very much either, but that's a bit subjective. But I really think the Giants can get a lot done. If they don't, and I'm wrong, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm getting good enough value, I'll make it up in other places. But I really like the Giants this year. I know the big contract happened there, too. There's a lot of stuff going on in New York. But if they get everything put together like they should, I think the Giants can maybe run away with that division if Dallas and Philly have the problems I suspect that they're going to have early.
I mean, look at the shirt. You're talking to someone who, can we get this on here? There we go. Marilyn Monroe in a Giants t-shirt. Come on, bro. Did you do this on purpose, or are you really in on the Giants?
No, I really am, and I was talking to Bill about it before. Just when I saw the line start coming out, and based on how I expected everything to shake down, and all the personnel changes in Philly, I just went, you know what? It's a good line. Like I might as well lean in on that. But like I have Sean Payton again, Broncos side, win MVP. Russell Wilson comeback player of the year, maybe. I don't know. He's got some stuff in there. Team 3 getting kicked out of the building. I don't know how that's all going to play out with that team. If it's a culture shock to him, maybe he's able to step in and get that juice back, because I don't think he had his juice at all last year. But there's some teams that people were like, oh, they're down bad. People aren't giving a lot of respect to, like the Broncos and the Giants, that I think have a fair amount of value. So I hopped on them early.
For what, division or?
So division stuff, season wins. I did some, I don't like doing the MVP stuff, so I'd put quarter units on that stuff. But yeah, just a mixture of divisional stuff, and then obviously Jaguars Super Bowl I'll make me the happiest man in the entire world. But it's a bit of a stretch.
I already have a feeling I know who the pick for me to win MVP is going to be this year.
Yeah, who is it?
Joe Burrow.
Ooh, he's
9-1.
Cool.
So I'm not really giving you something crazy, but I think this is the Bengals' last season with this core, with him on the rookie contract. Jamar Chase not getting any money. Him and Justin Jefferson are gonna. Whoever gets the contract first, it's then gonna get broken by the other guy.
Odd man out.
And then T. Higgins there also. I think this is the last season for them to make noise, and I think he's gonna have a monster year.
I took them to win the division.
I'd be a hypocrite now, right? Because for him to win MVP, he would have to win the division. But I think I like Pittsburgh in that division, man. 7-1 to win it.
I mean, that is good value.
Yeah. Yeah, they went 6-1 with Kenny Pickett down the stretch. And I think that he's going to be solid for them. They have a lot of talent. TJ Watt, I think, is one of him and Micah Parsons, and probably Probably Bosa on San Fran are the 3 defenders where if they were ruled out, I'd probably swing the point spread in one way or another, which usually defenders don't really. But them 3 in particular are absolute game wreckers, and they're so versatile with so much of the things that they do. I want to go back to the Giants before we get into some MMA talk. Giants also had an amazing record in one-score games. However, the counter to that is the NFC is bad. There hasn't been a repeat winner in the division since 2002. Philly checks a lot of the boxes for a team that I automatically would fade. But then you look at the conference, bro, and the conference is pretty shitty.
Mm-hmm.
They lose both of their coordinators. Now you have a full year of Hurts in this system with A.J. Brown. So what is that going to look like week in, week out? It screams fade. But they're also, in my opinion, the 2 definitive teams that I look at in the NFC that I'm like, all right, they're going to be good. It's Philly and San Fran. And with the Giants, amazing record in one-score game. I believe they were 8-2. But they also had a ton of guys on IR, dude. And I think the Giants, we're recording this after the draft, before the draft happened. Some rumblings of them making a acquisition of like a D-Hop or a Brandon Ayuk. Probably going to spend the first-round pick on one of these receivers because you need to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you have, Slayton now? Like, come on. Shepard has suffered so many season-ending injuries. But they've had a lot of guys on IR. And also, I feel like Brian Dable is going to be the kind of coach that he'll always surpass his win total. You'll be like, how? How'd they go over 8.5 wins? Like, how are they in the playoffs? He's going to be that guy, I think, in the NFC.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff with San Francisco that I go, oh yeah, I really like them. I just can't bet anything on them. All the lines, like, it's so
dude,
juiced.
I think it's the dumbest bet you could make right now. Their win total is at 11.5. It's the highest. It's them, the Bengals, and the Chiefs, 11.5. And you're looking at a team that you have no idea who their quarterback is going to be. Sam Darnold.
Yeah,
I know we love Shanahan. I think it's a wait and see on that. You're not really going to see the win total switch until at all, probably. Because I think that's being factored in that, we don't know who their quarterback is. And also the conference is so bad. And that division, I think, is going to be a little bit of a problem in a bad way.
Yeah, and I'm the opposite. As I went hard on San Francisco last year. And the second Trey Lance went down, I went and bet them to win the division. That was one of my better bets of the year. I like San Francisco betting last year. This year, though, there's nothing you can touch with them. And it's a bit of a toss-up. Like, that Tommy John surgery is serious stuff. We don't know. Guys have issues with just plain old inflammation, period. And the NFL season can be quite rough.
Josh Allen, you saw, look pretty bad towards the tail end.
Mm-hmm. And you can't do anything about inflammation other than just try and treat it. But if you keep working at it, it gets worse. You get a quarterback carousel. That can be bad for a team. So, yeah, like that season win total, I would not even want to go near that, especially on the over. Like, the over on that would be insane to take.
Dude, every time I think of the Niners, I think of when Jimmy G got hurt, and I had just bet the Niners at 12-1 to win the Super Bowl, and then he gets hurt, and then I take the cash out because back in New York, I had my mom was running my account because I can't access it out here. Shouts to Mom Dukes helping us degen. I asked her to cash out, put like $100 on them to win the Super Bowl, and then it shoots up to 20-1, and I cash out. I ended up walking away with like minus $30 on that. And then I'm looking, Brock Purdy steps in, and then I'm like, man, this team is so good. Like, how bad could Brock Purdy be? Kept looking at 20, kept looking at 21. They obviously don't win the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. But, dude, come playoff time, I'm like, damn, they're the favorite right now, bro. Why did I not have that 20-1?
I had them at plus 2,800 to win the Super Bowl.
Oof.
And the Dallas fans were ruthless to me. I made a TikTok video about it. My comment section was a bloodbath. I was live on TikTok during that game, and they're like, the one funny thing, people kept saying, you just lost $2,800. And I go, no, that was the betting line. Like, plus 2,800 is the betting line.
Yeah,
Field just straight up didn't get that part, which I was laughing at. But, I got roasted on that one. But I go, it's a good bet that I had at plus 2,800 to win the Super Bowl the second Trey Lance went down.
People do not understand that. If I bet the Broncos at 50-1 to win the Super Bowl, if halfway through the season they're like 8-2 and now they're 20-1, that's a good ass bet that I have.
Yeah, it's there.
And that's what you're doing when you're betting on these futures. You're taking stabs at these teams, especially if they're in the NFC. Like, dude, I feel like you should bet the 4 worst odds in the NFC, whatever teams they are. You should just bet them. Like Atlanta, you should just bet them. That division's so bad. If they could just win the division, they'll host a playoff game. And at that point, they're probably like 120 to 1 now. Come playoff time, maybe they're 60. Maybe they're 70. You could cash out. Like, well, a lot of these apps offer you cash out. I'm not a cash out guy, but I think those are some of the scenarios that you should account for.
Yeah, and it's funny because like you always run into these situations where you're looking at, should I cash this out? Should I not? You can do good with that or not. And sometimes, yeah, you can get a little bit of money if you think your bet's going to go sideways, but you're up and they're offering you some money. Yeah, it's going to work out. But I'm aiming to win like 53% of my futures, and I've made money. I'm not trying to win them all.
Yo,
I think that's
sometimes you only
confusing.
need one to hit.
Oh, 100%. That's
the best thing about futures.
San Francisco made my entire NFL betting season because I got on them early. Aside of that, I probably would have had a close to losing year without San Francisco, but I capitalized on that, and I think I won a good amount of my futures, but I didn't have tons of value on them. That's why I got on early. I could have won way more money last year, but I bet stuff so late. That's why I hopped on early. That's either going to be good for me or bad for me. We don't know how that's going to play out, but
bro, that's betting in general.
I get to feel a bit more comfortable having just that closing line value that I'm guaranteed to have by getting this stuff. Like within a few hours of it being posted, I hopped on and bet stuff. I was playing a poker game and ended up blowing a hand because I didn't look at the cards right because I was on my phone betting divisional futures.
Damn.
It's a degen life.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Before we wrap up, what brings you to Vegas?
So I'm doing a bunch of UFC interviews now. So one of the things when I...
UFC fan too, right?
Oh, dude, I love the UFC. It's one of my favorite sports. You got a bunch of sports on. Sometimes I'm going to pick the UFC over hockey. And like the hockey was my life for so long. But yeah, I'm doing some interviews with fighters while I'm down here, just trying to grind out, try and go it on my own, be a full-time content creator. So just trying to get some stuff down here. And I got a lot of support down here with everyone that works with me and all the people I've met down here. It's just, I love being down here. It's fantastic. But there's a lot of people that are backing me to get stuff done. And I just, yeah, I'm in a good spot. I'm quite lucky that I've been able to fail forward so much.
I feel as if this answer is going to be obvious, but I think us two, our favorite fighter of all time is the same guy, right?
Yeah, I think I know where you're going with
Canada's
this one.
very own.
Yeah, Georges St-Pierre, man.
Oh, yeah.
Legend. I was so lucky to meet him last time I was down here. People say, like, don't meet your heroes. Nicest guy. I'm glad I actually ran into him. But he made our country of Canada so proud. He was the guy and a fantastic role model, too. He was beating everybody up and being nice and, like, genuinely at the same time. I don't understand how people can dislike that guy.
Yeah, he was ahead of his time as a fighter and as a character because he wasn't a character. And now you see a lot of people with the gimmicks to become marketable. But I think he's a prime example of a guy who, if you're just elite, people will be a fan of you. You don't need to go out there and trash people's religion and their families and their countries like some guys do. You don't need to do all that stuff. If you just go out there and whoop ass, people will gravitate to you. And he's the reason why I got into the UFC, dude. When he fought Dan Hardy, I talk about that all the time. I never met him. However, I did get to do a show with him one time because my guy Will Blackman and him, they became friends because they both tore their ACLs around the same time, and they were rehabbing together in California, I think. I think it was, somewhere in LA. And they became friends. We had him on a podcast that us two were doing together. And dude, I've done thousands of shows and conversations. That's the most nervous I ever was. I was like, this is my GOAT, bro.
Yeah.
This is the guy that introduced me to the one sport that, similar to you, UFC now is in that discussion with soccer and the NFL. And if there's a dope UFC event, I'll always choose that. And Will, as we were talking, he's like, at the end, I'll give you the floor and you can ask him something. And Will was like, Nick, you want to say anything to GSP? Here's your chance. I was like, man, I just want to say thank you, bro. I was like, you're my GOAT. You're my hero in this fight game. And I told him how I got into UFC because of you. And I was like, I don't really got a question. I just wanted to thank you. He was like, man, I'm so honored, man. I was like, that's dope. Yeah, I clipped that. I posted that everywhere.
I tried to make that interaction with him as short as possible. I don't like bothering guys.
Yeah.
Like, I'm never a guy like, hey, can I get a picture with you or anything? I just, like, meant a lot to me. So I just tried to make a quick, like, hey, in and out. And just, like, guys like that get bothered all the time. I could never imagine having to deal with, like, the recognizability he has, especially when he's down in Vegas. I mean, alone in Canada, if you watched him in Montreal, I'm sure he stopped all the time. But, yeah, that was a pretty dope moment, meeting him outside the win.
Who's the one person you would want to meet that, like, you get starstruck over?
Probably Chael. If I met Chael.
Yeah, dude, he bought us shots one time in New York City.
Yeah?
Yeah, my friends and I, my buddy Eric sees him, he's like, yo, Uncle Chill. He's like, hey, what's up, guys? And it was just 3 of us. He goes, what are you guys drinking? We're like, we're getting beers. He's like, you guys want shots? We're like, yeah, we'll do shots. He's like, all right, come on. So he orders the shots, take shots with us. And then my buddy Dylan's like, yo, Chill, do you think Usman and Covington are on any PEDs? And he's like, I'm not the one to say. And he's like winking. And then my friend Eric goes, yo, Chill, were you on PEDs? And he just goes, the real answer, the real question is, what PEDs was I not on? And then he took a picture with us, and he's like, guys, enjoy the fight. But he was dope, man. He was awesome. He's a psychopath, but he's
one of the reasons I got into the UFC, between him and GSP. But, like, yeah, Chael, just the way
Yo,
he
and what
talks.
about that? 2 polar opposites.
Yeah.
Like, GSP is, like, super respectful, and Chael Sonnen is like, Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck.
There's the carrot thing, like, you know, that's funny. Like, some of the stuff maybe you could argue is offensive. But he also wasn't like some of the other guys today who blatantly just try and say things that we all know is like not okay and it's offensive just to get the headline going and hype something up and piss somebody off. Chael was like creative and funny with it. You got to give him a lot of respect for how he managed it. You can be upset at him now. I guess the Nogueira brothers just like don't want to talk to him, and they've like cold stoned him every single time he's ran into them. But
And I think an entire country in Brazil is not exactly the biggest fan of Chael Sonnen.
yeah, but he's so important to the history of the UFC, MMA in general, and like the work he does now. He's one of the few MMA guys I'll actively go and watch everything that they post, because the way he breaks everything down is so good. I don't know how he does it. It seems like he has a writer, but he doesn't. It's just all him all the time. Yeah, dude, he's the GOAT.
This was a good time, man. It was nice to connect with you in person. I love the conversation. I learned so much about a place I like to visit in Canada, even though I haven't been there in a while. Always treated me nice, and to learn about the betting stuff over there. Tell the people where they could find you and all your social media handles.
So at The Other Babs on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. You can follow me there, YouTube. I post pretty much daily, cover a bunch of different stuff, but I try and keep things like real chill and authentic and give people like valuable information and authentic stuff that you really like can't get anywhere else.
At Nick Diaz 10 is where you can find me. VeteransMinimum.com is you can find all things VM. Join the Patreon at patreon.com/veteransminimum, and we'll catch you guys next time.
I haven't done an interview in